experience. Yeah. It's Brian Shannon back from Alaska. Yeah. And how was your little vacation there from Alpha Trends? Thank you so much coming through. Brian Shannon from Alpha Trends is back in the building here live with us at TraderTV. Welcome, Brian. And you look relaxed. Everything looks great. How was your little vacation there?
It was excellent. I would recommend everyone goes up there and looks into all the awesome activities they do. We just had a great time.
Good. Yeah, Dara was mentioning that and saying that although there's a lot of activities to do, she thought maybe a week or two might be the cap over there. But what was your favorite thing to do?
Without a doubt, walking in the river with about 20 different brown bears out there. Just insane.
Wow. What? That's so
insane.
And you didn't fear for your life or anything?
You know, they really, at first it was a little bit intimidating, but they walked, Sean, within 10 feet of me.
Oh my God.
And they just don't care. There are so many fish down there that they're eating. They eat 60,000 calories a day when they're fattening up. Oh, so they're just fishing. And like, we're just kind of a nuisance to them. They're like, you know, I was standing there at one point with my wife and 2 bears came up. We didn't even hear them. And they just kind of looked at us like, get the hell out of the way. So we did. And they just continued walking upstream. It was really amazing.
I'm sure there was a guide there in case things went a little south.
We did have a guide, but you don't need a guide. It's crazy. They'll just let you go down there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, what you have to fear is the hungry bear, right? So
yeah, exactly. They're not hungry.
These guys aren't. They're feasting on salmon.
Fresh salmon. Yeah, my wife just got some salmon at Costco. I wonder if there's a difference. All right, so thanks, Brian, for being with us one more time here today. Just a quick question. When you go on vacations like that, especially with family, do you just completely, unplug? Do you keep a couple positions on, or is that kind of the furthest thing from your mind when you're enjoying some good family vacation time?
I had a couple positions on. I mean, when we pulled back prior to me leaving that Thursday, we pulled back, after the Leopold low, we pulled back the next day to the 5-day moving average and the anchor off that low. So I bought a couple of things, nothing really big, but I'm still holding them. And fortunately, I was able to participate in some of that strength last week. But I didn't spend any time obsessing over them, looking at them, looking for new ideas, or even doing anything other than adjusting stops.
And we've done this long enough to know that time is more valuable. We can have a lot of seat time in front of the screens, and you and I have definitely combined for many, many years. But your history is in prop trading, right? You started out as a prop trader?
I didn't start there. I mean, full-time I started there, yeah. Actually, that's true. I started out, after being a retail stockbroker.
Right.
I went to a prop firm called Generic Trading out of New York. And back then it was 24K dial-up. And then I remember when we went to a 48K dial-up, it was, lightning faster. So it was, crazy stuff. Yeah. And trading in quarters and in eighths and then 16ths and all that good stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of where I got started, Sean.
Amazing, amazing. I was just thinking about a joke. Like I remember reading that book that you were working for somebody, and every time they made a trade, a big cannon would fire off. That was a funny story there in one of your books. I was just thinking about it. Every time Brian goes on vacation, he anchors with the VWAP. If you're in a boat or something like that. So, anyways, lame ass joke.
I should have taken a picture. There's a town in Alaska that we drove through. Yeah. It's called Anchor Point.
Oh, okay.
And I should have taken a picture. Like, this is the point where you anchor.
Could have been the cover of your next book, man. We could have got something going on over there. Well, you mentioned that bottom there with, now I forget the name of it again. Situational awareness. There we go. Bottom. And today, Brian, we actually had a super chat, and I was kind of secretly trying to leave it for you. And it was CoreWeave and Nebius. Both those names are reporting. One tonight with CoreWeave and then Nebius tomorrow. I'm not trying to get a prediction because anybody that thinks, that we can predict what's going to happen on earnings, that's a tough gig. But if you're looking at charts right here, CoreWeave underneath the 200-period moving average. I was thinking actually, and I know we're in the penalty box, and I get this from you, so shout out to Brian from Alpha Trends. We want to thank him for being on with us one more time here. But you're in a penalty box until you're out, and right here underneath the 200, underneath the 50, CoreWeave not looking the greatest. However, I think if they can come up with a good story, we had one from Riot Blockchain today about Anthropic. Boom goes the dynamite. I think you're at a good level here, potentially coiling up, maybe getting going. That's what CoreWeave looks like, and they also had that bottom there with the fund. And then NBIS, your next name over here, looking a little different on the daily than CoreWeave. Once this loads up, I can get it for you once it does. Again, underneath the 50-period moving average is Nebius, but over the 200. So if we were going to sort of pick and choose, does one of these charts look a little bit more interesting to Brian Shannon than the other?
They're both interesting, but as far as buying them ahead of earnings, I have zero interest. And if we look at CoreWeave first, like you said, we're right up against that 200-day moving average. That's that black dashed line. And the blue dashed line is the 50-day moving average. The orange line is the year-to-date anchor. This is on the right, the 30-minute time frame, the anchor off the Leo low. So, maybe we drop down in towards that level, come back up. rebuild, and then we can make it through this 95. I think you've got to make it back above and hold above 96 just to become more neutral here from a longer-term structural point. But when I look at this daily chart, it's just a mess. I mean, I really don't understand the fascination with this stock so much, because it is just it's done nothing really since they've come public. It's up a bit, but a lot of volatility and great for shorter-term trades, but just volatility all over the place. I think there's saner stocks to trade. NBIS is probably a little bit saner. The thing is, it's below the anchor from the Leo low, and this is one of the positions that was in his account. So basically, the average price since that low is now above us. If this one can get back up towards that 50-day moving average, create a higher low, and then I think then you've got something here with NBIS. This one I like better. We had this low, we have what's looking like a higher low. So now on the daily time frame, one more rally up, higher low, and then get going.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're similar on that one. I did think that Nebius was a little bit of a better look on that. Have you seen Bending Spoons, which is symbol BSP? This is another recent IPO, and what they do is they take sort of old apps. They're big engineering for computer science, taking old apps, bringing them back. I think maybe Vine is one of theirs. They're an Italian-based company. They just IPO'd, and I know we just talked about CoreWeave, what they've been doing, and Nebius and SpaceX now and Cerebras and some of these most recent names here. But check out Bending Spoons. I mean, this has had a great IPO down there at 31 bucks, pops up to 40, gives you all the love down here where you could have really just kind of gone long against some of those lows. Maybe you stop out on July 15th or this day right there when it pops below. But if you're lucky enough to have a little bit of a lower stop, or you even get back in once it builds strength again, there goes BSP. So is this appropriate here? If we're trying to get in, like, this is a missed opportunity, but it looks like the buyers want to come in and continue to buy this name. Huge day yesterday, 44 to 54, trying to get higher. Can we place an anchor? And unfortunately, this software that I'm using right here, Brian, doesn't have that, but is anchoring something to its IPO day one trade? Is that something now, or do we just not have enough data yet to use an anchored VWAP on BSP?
No, that's something that I do from the very first minute of trading, and then it often becomes important for a long time, like we saw in the case of Intel that we talk about once in a while back when they IPO'd. That became the anchor to keep an eye on for this last move. Anyways, Bending Spoons, didn't one of your kids tell you to buy this one, Sean?
Yeah, that's these kids cost me a lot of money, and then when there's an opportunity for them to make me some money, I don't listen.
You don't listen to them.
So you're 100% right. Good memory. Yeah, my son that just graduated from Waterloo, he was saying that he's looking for a job, and he actually got one downtown here with an AI private firm. And he's been really, glad to have that. But when I told him about Bending Spoons, he's like, oh my God, you got to get in. That's like a very high quality. They're looking for, everybody graduating, trying to get in there. So I didn't know if that was like bubble-ish, but at the end of the day, yes, was a good recommendation. I think trading on stuff like that is actually fine. I mean, if there's companies you don't understand, some of the youth these days definitely know.
Yeah, if they can educate you on the story and then you see a chart setting up, then by all means. I mean, I view it the same. But the anchor from the IPO, we got back above it over here, and it's been up and away. I mean, the stock has nearly doubled here in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. So buying it here, maybe a little bit stretched. I think you look at the anchor from where it started getting going here. We touched it a couple days ago. So maybe in the next few days, if it works its way down a little bit in towards this 5-day moving average, and the anchor off the beginning of that move stabilizes, then I think you want to buy it. But up here, it's just getting a little too stretched for me personally.
All right, Joe has a couple of topics.
Yeah. Well, we're going to touch on a couple of things. What's going on, Brian? Good to talk to you once again.
You too.
Listen, I want to talk about the indices here. Now, we've seen the SPY, we've seen the Dow Jones, and we've seen the Russell 2000 hit all-time highs, the ETFs, that is. But if you're someone who's been sitting with some cash on the sideline, and that may not be the best thing right now, but I'm looking at some of these pullbacks, Brian, and respectively with the SPY and in the DIA and IWM, it's 4, 5, even 6%. I'm finding these relatively shallow. At what point do you think we can get in some of these runs? Because we're only getting 4 or 5% of a pullback. Are we going to see that 10, 12 anytime soon, where I think a lot of people are looking for? Because you and I had the discussion is that, hey, are we looking for this pullback, which would put us at around 8%, but we got half of that, and the next thing we are making all-time highs. How are you looking at this?
Pretty amazing, right? I mean, when we look at the daily chart here on the left, we broke this resistance, and then it was up and away off that, what was the Leo low. So I've got the anchor off of that Leo low right here. And what I'm really hoping we see in the next couple of days, because as mentioned, I only had small positions based on it touching we made that low, and the next day we gapped up, pulled back to the 5-day moving average and the anchor off of that low, and it's been up and away. Now we're having trouble with the 5-day moving average. I'd love to see in the next couple of days, maybe we pull back down and test that anchor at about 760. So if we would come down to 760, it would actually test this prior resistance as well as that anchor. So we could actually put that on the daily chart and see that, it pretty much ties this prior band of resistance up in here. So pulling back towards 760 If we start to stabilize and move higher, I think that's where you get involved, is strength after a pullback to 760 in the SPY. For the Qs, maybe down towards that 705 would be ideal, and that would at that point be testing the 20-day moving average, and that 20 would be rising because we're averaging this data out over here. So I'm hoping that we get maybe another 2 to 3 days of pullback and then set up for the next leg higher.
And that, I guess that's the narrative in which you just kind of explained there is a continuous buy the dip scenario for individuals like myself. We'd like to see something a little bit deeper, but from the metrics that we just explained right there, that's 2.5%. That's not very deep. I feel that's relatively shallow.
It certainly is. You know, the only if the semiconductors fell apart, which it doesn't look like they're going to, then maybe that puts a little damper on things. But we've got, you know, here's the anchor off the Leo low. So maybe we pull back to 555-ish in there and then make a higher low here. And then when we look at that, you could look at this daily chart and say that's a shoulder, that's a head, and that's a shoulder. And then we get back above that 585, 590, it could be up and away to new all-time highs in the SMH as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And to lead into more of this discussion, I'm looking at NVDA here, and we've been consolidating. Like, we had this long consolidative base here from August 25 to March of 26. It breaks out, but then now we're moving sideways again. What do you see going on with this name in particular? Like, why aren't we seeing some of the moves that we've seen in some of the other names here in NVDA?
Well, you know, who was it, you know, that sold their big piece back in May or something like that? And it's just taken some time. We saw an important move last week that it made it past this resistance here at 210. Now, if it can pull back down into that zone for, you know, maybe it does this for a couple days, pulls back down into that 210 zone, that's also the anchor off that Leo low. Then the 20-day moving average is catching up to it. The 20 is above the 50. And if you pull back into there, if that resistance does in fact become support, then I think you've got your next move in NVIDIA to new all-time highs.
Perfect. And final question here. What are you thinking about some of these memory names? I mean, again, massive runs here to the tune, some of them going 1,000%, SanDisk, and then obviously some of the other names, Western Digital, just going on these substantial runs and then losing half of their value, but you're not seeing participants really step back in some of these names here.
Yeah, they're still having problems, obviously. Like, you look at Western Digital here, it's below declining 20 and 50-day moving average. I don't think there's a lot more downside in these. You've got the year-to-date anchor here, which has been important for Western Digital over and over again. And below that, if it were to get worse, you've got the rising 200-day moving average. But I think they're just going to take some time still to, you know, digest in here. SanDisk, same thing. We bounced perfectly from the year-to-date anchor. That was the absolute low of that pullback right there on the 29th. And we bounced up to the declining 20. So it's kind of doing what it's supposed to. And maybe it's just going to need some time, get that 20-day moving average flattened out, run up to the 50, and then consolidate a little bit. The 50 flattens out, then you're ready to go again. I think the worst is probably behind us right now, but it doesn't mean you can expect them to buy them here and just quickly run. A couple weeks of you know, settling down in here seems like the best scenario for them.
Thanks.
$2 super chat.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, I was going to go ahead and do this. Looks like Andre beat us to this. But yeah, here we go. We have a question from the audience, Brian, then we're going to get maybe a look from you if there's any stock that you're looking at. This is Zeta. This is a online marketing company that has an all-in-one platform. So if you're a big business looking to, you know, buy software or buy ad space, what they have is in an all-in-one platform, cloud AI, to help big businesses basically find, it's kind of like the trade desk, try to find out, you know, good spots for them to be investing their money as far as advertising. Tons and tons of clients underneath them with earnings just out. What does this look like to you, Zeta? And it's been a very, very aggressive move. And for me, I mean, breaking through this $25 mark, I mean, this is off to the races here. The highs go all the way back into March right now, running into potentially something over here. But this looks like it's trying to break out here. Zeta, another one of these names involved in the AI race.
Yeah, let's not compare it to TTD, though, because
no.
that one's just a disaster. So Zeta, whatever you want to call this thing, the thing about this when I look at a weekly chart is it just broke this resistance like you said here, Sean, and that is a place where we've been rejected several times in the past. Now we've broken past it. The past rejections have been really hard, too. So they came up there and got the crap knocked out of them 4 times. This time we're holding above them. So I think this 25-ish area is going to be important in terms of a level that it needs to hold if it begins to pull back. The thing that really just makes me a little bit concerned about a new position here is it's gone from 19 to 29. So it's just rallied basically 50% here in the last 2 weeks. It's still positive. It's still running. So I think the name of the game in here is if you're long, you raise your stop up under, you know, these higher lows with that rising 5-day moving average. And then if it starts to pull back deeper in maybe a couple weeks and comes down and tests that 25 level, that will really kind of pave the way for what could be next. So we had this 50% move. It hasn't really had much of a correction opportunity yet. If you are, you know, making new purchases, I'd say a stop goes under here, just underneath that higher low from this morning. but it's getting a little bit too stretched for, to be able to think it can continue at this pace, I think.
Right, yeah, looks a little stretchy. I mean, Zeta there, covered by Brian Shannon. We want to thank Brian Shannon for coming through from Alpha Trends right now. Oh, there's many names we could ask you about.
Could go all day.
Yeah, we could basically go all day. Is there something on your radar right now that you want to let our viewers sort of say, hey, maybe this is worth a look, it's setting up for something, a name that you can maybe give some of our viewers to go do some homework on?
Sure. How about Neogen, N-E-O-G? The biotechs are strong. This one, N-E-O-G, they just reported earnings, and it gapped up on those earnings. Here's the anchor from that earnings report right here. So you can see we're right at it. Tomorrow, that 5-day moving average begins to rise as we average this data out. So maybe a quick pullback in the morning, and then it gets going. But this is just huge volume on the rally up here for several days. Lighter volume on the consolidation is the volume pattern that signature that we're looking for. It pulled back to this prior band of resistance. If you look at a weekly chart, it still looks like it's got some room to run. This is where we are. This is where maybe we could be heading up towards that 14-ish level, which would be a nice 18, 19% move from here. So I've got a close eye on Neogen, and a worst case stop would go underneath this low. Maybe split your stop, put half of it under here, or a third of it here, a third of it there, and a third under that level, so that if it gets a little shakeout, you've still got some left to go.
All right, just got a little story there. U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent, we welcome Meta's release of Muse Glimmer.
Okay.
Does that mean anything to you, Brian? I mean, to me, no.
No, Muse Glimmer? What
exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing. It was just recent news.
Yeah.
Meta's been trying to pop up and down another name that we could probably talk to you about. But we want to thank Brian Shannon. He never asked me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. This is Maximum Trading Gains with Anchored VWAP. Still one of the best financial books that you can get right now on the market. And I think it's probably 4 or 5 years old, Brian, maybe more.
2023 it came out. So
wow, time right there. Yeah, 2023. So thank you to Brian for that one. Maximum Trading Gains with Anchored VWAP. You can go find that. Go to his page at Alpha Trends as well on X and on StockTwits. Absolutely fantastic, Brian. Thank you for all your stories about Alaska there. That was a wild time for the bear. If you have any pictures, man, next time would love to see one or two.
Check out my X. I put a bunch of them on there.
Perfect. As soon as we leave, we're going right over there then. We'll show them there. So don't go anywhere, traders. Stay with us. We'll show you Brian Shannon.
The adventures
potentially
of Brian,
almost getting eaten by a bear.
Yeah. The adventures of
Brian Shannon. Yeah, maybe
next book, right?
We can do that. Yeah, we'll get our team to put something together. But thank you so much. It's Brian Shannon. Go give this gentleman a follow. One of our original guests. It's Brian from Alpha Trends. Thank you so much for spending your Tuesday afternoon with us.
Thanks, Brian.
My pleasure always. Thanks, everyone.
Ciao. Thank you. And we'll just keep that book. We'll just keep that book right here.